We frequently and incorrectly regard modern society as the pinnacle of humanity, considering technology to be a modern craft. However, some ancient societies were far more inventive than we give them credit for. Not only did they create technology that we still use today, but they also constructed things that we modern dimwits still can't figure out how they work after all these years. They may not have invented the iPhone, but some of their technology is still astounding. These are the oldest technologies that scientists have yet to explain. Number 8. Phrygian Valley Track Marks. Looking at these track marks running across the landscape of the Phrygian Valley in west-central Anatolia, Turkey, you'd think it looks like cart drag marks ran through it while it was muddy. Except you'd be incorrect, and scientists are incorrect. We're all mistaken. Nobody knows what caused the mysterious rust in the landscape. What it appears to be is not what it is for. These track marks are cut into the bedrock in even spaces and date back over 12 million years. They were discovered between 1600 BC and 1178 BC during the Hittite Empire. More evidence indicates that more track marks were left later on by the Greeks Alexander the Great and his army, as well as the Phrygians. But the question of who did that first 12 million years ago remains unanswered. Were the ruts formed by glacial waters, or were there aliens transporting materials through our land long before we arrived? Number 7. Sandcloth. The hourglass is a symbol that most of us are familiar with. Two glass triangles are joined end to end, with sand flowing down the center. But where did it come from, and why did it take the place of the water clock, which was working perfectly well in Egypt in 1500 BC? Egyptians used to use a draining liquid, clepsydra, or a water block. But by the end of the medieval period, these devices had become obsolete. The hourglass with sand or granulated material was created. Scientists are still baffled as to how it happened. Some credit a French monk named Liutprand from the 18th century, while others believe they did not become common tools until the 14th century. In the 1300s, written records from the medieval Europe revealed evidence of them. So, what makes them superior to water? The majority of those who used them, at least at first, were on ships. Imagine trying to tell the time accurately while the boat is constantly moving. Out at sea, the most consistent option was sand flowing down a funnel. The granules were usually sand, but they could also be lead, eggshells, or crushed marbles. The size will also vary between minutes and hours. Number 6. Greek fire. During war and battles, both sides are constantly trying to outwit their adversary. They accomplish this through the use of massive weapons and devious tactics, all in the name of ensuring victory for their team. This may appear to be a modern invention, but the Greeks were ahead of the game as well. The Greeks created a weapon known as Greek fire, which may have been the reason they were able to hold off their enemies for as long as they did between 959 and 963 AD. Unfortunately, the recipe was so closely guarded that scientists cannot be certain what was in the Greek fire. All they knew was that it was toxic. Fire in war is nothing new, but it was then. They used cannons, flamethrowers, guns, and missiles, among other things. But Greek fire was unique. It was a fluid chemical mixture that could be ignited and then sprayed onto enemy ships. It was so lethal because it couldn't be terminated with water. Scientists now believe that the recipe may have included sulfur, niter, saltpeter, refined petrol, and naphtha, to name a few ingredients. Number 5. Damascus steel. Most people have experienced the agony and frustration of attempting to cut through a squishy, soggy tomato with a blunt knife. No matter how many times you can sharpen it, it appears to become blunt in a matter of days. That is why Damascus steel is so remarkable. A quick note on the perplexing state of affairs surrounding the term Damascus steel, both in terms of what it is and why it's no longer in existence. Damascus steel was a material that existed in the 4th century AD. Not only did swords made out of this material look incredible, they were also deadly sharp. They could sever a rifle barrel or even a single thin hair that fell across the blade. As you might expect, few people survived their wounds on the battlefield. Some claim that dragon blood gave the blades its strength. However, scientists will categorize that as an old wives' tale. We're still no closer to finding out. Metal derived from roots in India was shipped to the Middle East from around 3rd century until the 17th century. Damascus swords were no longer made by 1750, and metalsmiths gradually lost that skill. Perhaps the use of firearms rendered them useless, or perhaps the type of raw material is no longer available. We only know that we could use some Damascus steel in the kitchen right now. Number 4. The Baghdad Battery. Our new electric and battery technology is incredible. However, believe it or not, it is far from new. That's correct. A one-of-a-kind artifact in Iraq's Baghdad Museum demonstrates this. Something as simple as a clay pot was able to produce 1.1 volts. The pot stood 6 inches tall and featured a copper cylinder in the center, followed by an iron rod. The copper cylinder and iron rod were held in place by an asphalt plug. Several of these pots were discovered during excavations in the village of Kujit Rabu, near Baghdad. That village had been around for around 2,000 years, dating back to the Parthenon period. There is no way of knowing what the clay pot was used for, but there are plenty of theories. Some speculate that it was an ancient battery, which could be correct. When the pot was filled with an electrolytic liquid, such as vinegar, some corrosion was left in the bottom to indicate that this was the case. Could they have been charging their prehistoric iPhones with it? You can say. Number 3. Wheel of Giants. Many have forgotten archaeological sites can be found in Israel. Basically, you can be out on a casual hike and come across something, but no one has ever seen anything dating back thousands of years. The Wheel of Giants is one such site, and perhaps one of the more mysterious ones. This prehistoric stone monument in the Golan Heights dates back hundreds of years ago, but was overlooked for centuries. Why? Because it can only be seen from the air, not on the ground. In Arabic, the Wheel of Giants is known as Ruha Melhiri, which translates to Wildcat's Stone Heap. The Wheel of Giants is Gilgal Rephaim in Hebrew, and it refers to an ancient race of giants mentioned in the Bible. The monument is made out of 5 circles, one of which is over 500 feet in diameter. In the center, there is also a burial site. Experts want it to be designated as a national park so that it can be preserved and enjoyed by everyone. However, the Wheel of Giants is more likely to join the several other forgotten Middle Eastern archaeological sites. Number 2. Zhang Heng Seismograph. We have some pretty advanced technology that allows us to measure earthquakes and general seismic events. But did you know that this technology is far from new? In fact, Chinese mathematician, engineer, and astronomer Zhang Heng invented such a device in 132 AD. This seismometer could detect ground movement during an earthquake and even tell which direction it was coming from. Everyone else knew that tectonic plates were to blame. Instead, they mistook them for a divine displeasure and a shift in cosmic yin and yang. Number 1. Ulfberht Sword. When you watch medieval era movies, you notice how rough and unpolished everything is. The majority of items are handcrafted, and the term pure is merely used, unless you're talking about the Ulfberht Sword, in which case you can talk about perfection. Ulfberht swords date back to the times of the Vikings and were made with metal so pure that it wasn't supposed to exist in that form for another 800 years or so. However, this was proven incorrect when approximately 170 such swords dating back from 800 to 1000 AD were discovered. So why shouldn't they exist? To liquefy the metal during the forging process, it was heated to around 3000 degrees. Blacksmiths could remove the impurities known as slag at that temperature. Carbon will then be added to strengthen the sword. Such temperatures, however, were impossible to reach during the Viking era. Scientists are baffled as to how they managed to make such perfect weapons of war without modern methods. Scientists can work out what most of these things are for, or what they do or did. But can you? Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to our Tech Guys channel so you won't miss all the new videos that come out every other day that are all about tech news and reviews from some tech guys. Check you out next time.